welcome to another edition of Currently in Quincy. I'm Joe Catalano, and on today's program we'll learn about the tax preparation service offered at Quincy Community Action Programs. Rob Canada will be our guest a little later on. First, though, we take a look at the weather and the news for you. Currently in Quincy, it's nice out there, partly sunny, 44 degrees right now. The clouds will increase throughout the day today, but mild with highs in the upper 40s, and not that cold this evening. Cloudy tonight, lows in the upper 30s. Looks like a messy Saturday on tap tomorrow. Just a mix of rain and slush and snow throughout the day. No real accumulation here at the coast with a high around 40 degrees. Cloudy here on Sunday and a high about 40. That sets us up for some late day showers on Monday. Highs Monday into the mid 40s. Could lead to a stormy Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. So today is about the best day of the next several, so get out and enjoy it. Partly sunny, 44 degrees in Quincy right now. Checking news for you today, a state mediator has now been appointed to help the Quincy School Committee and the Quincy Education Association come to terms on a new contract. That mediator was appointed back on Monday after both sides agreed to let the talks go into arbitration last Friday. Mayor Thomas Koch says the bargaining teams had reached an impasse.
We had 15 sessions that the last several sessions, there was very little movement. So at some point you got to scratch your head and say, okay, how do we get there? And again, this is a tool in the tool chest of the mediator. So I think it's a good step, and I'm certainly hopeful we'll make good progress and get there.
Quincy Education Association President Gail Carvalho said the union didn't feel that the talks were at a stalemate. She criticized the school committee for failing to review their latest offer before bringing in an outside mediator. Carvalho said the union agreed to the mediator with, quote, fingers crossed about reaching a fair contract. Both sides have now also agreed to make the negotiations more public, although the union claims they were not involved in that decision. Well, the future of the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater in Quincy is in question. Back in November, the Parks Department's board did vote to approve making some changes to the amphitheater at Pageant Field, while still keeping the legacy of the Quincy-born actress alive at that site. Mayor Thomas Koch says the facility is largely unused now that most performances are held at the Hancock Adams Common and at Kilroy Square in Quincy Center. Mayor also says that some on the Parks Board are concerned about the safety of youngsters who may climb the concrete seating at the amphitheater and become injured. Construction on that amphitheater started back in 1977 under Mayor Joe Larea using a $500,000 federal grant. It wasn't completed until 1984 under Mayor Frank McCauley. It was home to outdoor summer concerts for several years. Now, Koch suggested a statue of Gordon may be appropriate at that site, but he said there would be public input before a final decision about the future of the amphitheater is determined. Ruth Gordon was a 1914 graduate of Quincy High School. She died in 1985 at the age of 88. City of Quincy taking the next step in the process of installing solar energy panels on public buildings. City Council this week approved allowing the solar systems to be installed on 14 buildings or properties, including many schools and possibly the new Quincy Animal Shelter that's being built off Quarry Street. City Council President Noel DeMona says a plan was introduced that would spare any trees at the new animal shelter site.
The particular item at the animal shelter, because this cannot be up on the roofs, because there's going to be like landscape up on those roofs, we're looking to use an extra solar panel on the ground. This is not a done deal. It's just something they're going to look at and see if they can do it. Shelley Dean did a great job with finding an area by the animal shelter that has no implementation of taking out trees or cutting down trees. The Quincy Tree Alliance had raised some concern about, taking down trees to put these solar panels in on the ground. Some folks are not all in favor of ground, but, in particular, we're going to look into it. It's not a done situation, but we're going to look forward to, taking an assessment of the grounds over there at the animal shelter and see if we can do it.
City will now put out requests for proposals from solar energy companies to install those systems, which would provide electricity to those individual buildings. About half of Quincy's registered voters will be casting ballots in new polling places this fall. Quincy City Clerk Nicole Crispo says the redistricting that took place after the 2020 federal census resulted in some major changes to where people vote this year. Crispo says a preliminary election, if needed, would be held in late August this year so as not to interfere with school.
Tuesday, August 29th. We will have early voting. We will have vote by mail. So if that isn't a good date for you to come out and vote, we can certainly send you a ballot, or you can come up here and early vote ahead of time. All of the information will be on our website. As it gets closer, we'll put it on our social media pages, get it on the front page of the election, of the City of Quincy, ma.gov. And we'll get that over to you as well, so that you can put it up. We'll meet with you ahead of time and talk about the election like we always do. And we will also be mailing out to every household that has a registered voter their new ward precinct and where they vote.
The final election will be held on November 7th, and there will be no school on that day. Nomination papers will be available at the city clerk's office beginning on May 2nd. The mayor, all the city councilors, and 3 school committee seats are up for re-election this year. Well, close to $4 million was raised during yesterday's 10th annual Saving by Shaving fundraiser at Granite Telecommunications in North Quincy. Governor Maura Healey was one of about 700 people who agreed to have their hair shaved to raise that money for Boston Children's Hospital. Patriots players Chef Paul Wahlberg and Quincy Mayor Thomas Koch also participated in the event yesterday. Granite donated $2,500 for each person who shaved their head or donated at least 8 inches of their hair. And then CEO Rob Hale matched that for a total of $5,000 per head. All the locks of hair over 8 inches were donated to Hair We Share, which creates custom wigs free of charge for those affected by medical hair loss. In the past 10 years, more than 10,000 people have participated in Saving by Shaving, raising more than $50 million for charitable organizations. It's our check of news for you today. Coming up, Rob Kanata of the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program at Quincy Community Action Programs will be joining us next. Welcome back. Tax deadline is just a little over a month away, if that scares you. So we brought Rob Kanata over from Quincy Community Action Programs to talk about their Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program and how it might be able to help you get your taxes done. Rob, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Tax New Year, yeah, right?
Right. Yeah, so it's that time again.
Yeah, it is.
Most wonderful time of the year, as we say, around the tax program.
Is that what we say?
Yes.
Before we talk about that, can we talk a little bit about, because QCAP has more than just a tax preparation service. It has a complete financial service outreach program, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of departments at QCAP, but for financial stuff specifically, so we do have our Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, but year-round we also have the Financial Reach Center,
right,
which provides financial education workshops, most frequently on budgeting or credit, and we also have one-on-one financial coaching. And what's really great about that program is it's completely free to the client. So if you are thinking about making a big purchase and you're wondering where your credit is at,
right,
or if you're really, like, as we all know, over the past couple of years, expenses have been increasing, and putting a household budget together is a bit tougher.
Yes. Yep.
If you're looking for somebody to go over that with completely free, one-on-one, that is a service we're able to offer.
Which is fantastic, really is.
Yeah.
Is that open to anyone?
Yep, that's open to anyone.
That's the key point about that. There is no eligibility requirements. Right?
Yeah, it's really great. There's no specific income limit or eligibility. It's anyone who's interested in the service can sign up.
Are your services back full in person now?
It's a mix.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a lot of clients who have really preferred the online over the last 3 years.
It's very convenient.
Yeah. Especially with the financial coaching program, people can do it on their lunch break.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So they'll get in a quick Zoom with their coach on their lunch break or something like that. Or so we have options now. I think like a lot of places.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good point. You do need to make an appointment, right? Schedule
Yes.
appointments.
Yes.
Okay.
So for financial coaching, yes, it's an appointment. There's a whole intake process. But for the tax program, yes, it is an appointment-based service. We do have, we train a certain number of volunteers, and we have to schedule based on the number of volunteers we have. So
Sure.
we're not really able to do walk-ins.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's the volunteer base this year? Everybody's
great.
having worker shortages. You're okay?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So I think we're up to a bit over 25 volunteers
Okay.
who've signed up this year, which has been great. Again, a mix of people coming in person
Yeah.
and some people volunteering remotely. And it's been, we were a little bit, the last few years have been a lot of changes, as you can imagine. We've had a lot of software platforms that we've gone to and from over the years. The last time we had this conversation was 2020. I believe I think it was probably
Right before
right
everything
before February,
kind of
late
hit,
February or March of 2020,
That's
right?
right. Yep.
So, we did continue the tax program throughout,
I know.
entirely remote, of course, but that was a lot of, software changes, a lot of just policy and process changes.
Trial and error for sure.
Yeah, and I say all this not to complain, but actually to note how amazing so many of our volunteers have been
Yeah.
to stick with it and stick with us, as we have. It's always fun to be supervising a program and you're learning how to do it 24 hours before your volunteers are because things are changing so
It's
fast.
been described as building the plane as you're flying.
Yes,
And
yes.
that's essentially what it was. Yeah.
Right.
And they're volunteering. They're not being paid.
Yeah, they're not being paid.
So, yeah.
So it's now things have stabilized a bit now, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of our VITA volunteers, just really fantastic. We actually, our first in-person, I did a moment of reflection on this actually, because our first in-person site was February 4th, which you remember was that really, really, really cold polar
Oh, this year.
vortex Saturday.
Oh, okay.
Right, a few weeks ago
Yep.
we had. And we're just reflecting, we still opened,
Yep.
and we had, volunteers coming out in that weather to do the taxes of total strangers for free,
Wow.
right? And that's like a very specific set of person.
It
set of
really
people.
is. Yeah, they're really committed to that cause then.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, it's a fantastic group. So we're always very, very thankful for them.
So let's run down the VITA program, VITA, V-I-T-A, Volunteer Income
Yep.
Tax Assistance
Yep.
Program. It's the acronym for it, right?
Yep.
We'll start with some general information. We want to let folks know about it, just so they have an overview of what it actually is. New people come into the city all the time, so they might not know about QCAP or the
Sure.
VITA program. So let's begin.
Sure. Okay. So
What's the VITA program, Rob?
What's the VITA program? So VITA is an IRS program. It is nationwide. I believe it's a little over 50 years now.
Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, the 50th anniversary was I think 2 years ago.
Okay.
So it's been around for quite a while. We have been doing it at least since 2007.
Is that
before my
right?
time.
Okay.
Yes. There's a plaque on the wall for 2007, so I believe that was the first year.
Okay.
I may be wrong on that. So it's been around for a while, and it is the gist of it is that this is the IRS working with agencies like QCAP to help low to moderate income taxpayers get their taxes done for free. And so part of it is that public service, and part of it is also giving potential volunteers, people who might be interested in the world of taxes, and we very often have a lot of accounting students and
Retired
that sort of
CPAs,
stuff.
things like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's also like a really good community service opportunity for the volunteers.
Okay.
That's sort of the gist of it.
Yeah. Do the volunteers have to go through a training before they provide the tax service? They do.
Yeah. So the usual calendar. So the part the clients see will be
Yep.
from February through April.
Yes.
But we really start back in November,
Okay.
where we begin to recruit volunteers in November and December. Then January is where our volunteers do their training.
Okay.
So we have volunteers who, primarily work on intake, but then we also have volunteers who will be working on the actual tax preparation. So depending on your role, you're probably looking at 10 to 20 hours of training before the program opens.
Okay.
And then we open in February.
Okay.
So
Who can take advantage of the VITA program at QCAP?
So the VITA program does have some restrictions. These come from the IRS. So the primary one to keep in mind is this year the income limit is $60,000. So if your 2022 income was above $60,000, then that would put you out of scope for the VITA program.
Gross income?
Gross income.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's actually per return as well.
Oh.
So even for a married couple, the $60,000, it's the $60,000 is $60,000 regardless of it's single, head of household, or married.
Okay.
So that is one restriction of the program. We try to help as many people as possible.
Sure.
But given that our volunteers we're working with volunteers who've gone through a training process, and there are some more advanced situations that our volunteers just aren't able to don't have the training for. So some examples, if you have landlord income, that's generally out of scope for the program. If you own a business that has employees, that's usually out of scope as well.
Okay.
Self-employment is usually okay. If you work for yourself, that's all right.
Okay.
But if you have employees and you're paying payroll taxes and all that stuff, that's beyond.
Too advanced. Yeah.
And the other one we do run into sometimes is you have to be in 2022 you needed to be a full year Massachusetts resident.
Yep.
Because we train our volunteers to do Massachusetts returns.
Okay.
But if you also lived in Colorado or North Carolina for a few months, we can't really help you with that.
Oh, so for all 12 months you had to be a resident of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because we can't train our volunteers on all 50 state returns.
Okay.
So things
So
like
you can't, but you can do Massachusetts returns in addition to the federal returns.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So this is the federal and the Massachusetts returns we do.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good. Good to know. Right?
Yeah.
Good to know. How many clients would a volunteer help during the tax season?
Depends on, we have some, right now we have, a few different shifts that volunteers do. So depends on how many shifts the individual volunteer takes up. But generally speaking, it's about 12 weeks.
Okay.
And we ask our volunteers to sign up for a minimum of like a 3-hour shift.
Okay.
Just to have some consistency. So probably if somebody does all 12 weeks, probably helping one client an hour-ish.
Okay.
So like 35 people or so is
right.
possible.
Throughout the tax season?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So can it be done remotely if need be?
Yes.
Entirely? Yeah.
So we have a couple of options. So we have the in-person appointments. So that is currently on Saturdays. So we're at 1511 Hancock Street, right next to our main entrance. And so that is the full in-person. If you went to us a couple of years ago, and over the last few years you were wondering about it, that is the traditional, what we were doing in 2019 service is back on Saturdays. We also have a drop-off option where you can come to the office. We'll make an appointment, usually during the week, and we will collect documents and we will upload them into our online portal. And then our tax preparers who are working remotely will take care of them.
Okay.
And then when your return is done, we'll give you a call, tell you the results, and you come in, you sign off on it, we print a copy for you, and you're on your way.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a different process, but it's still similar. As far as fully online, it's not as we're more doing the drop-off model.
Okay.
We found that there were a lot of technical challenges for people uploading their own stuff. So if there's a specific case where somebody needs to only do that, you can call, and it's kind of a case-by-case basis.
All right.
But we find that it's usually easier for everyone, including the client, if they bring the stuff to us, and then we do the uploading and the document.
The technical part of it.
Yeah, the technical part. Yeah.
Do you also file the returns for the client? You do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we will, after the client has signed off on the return, There are 2 authorization forms that we ask the client to sign, one for the federal, one for the state. And once those have been signed, we will transmit the returns to the IRS and the Mass Department of Revenue.
Okay.
Yep.
And they'll get a copy of, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you come in person, we give you a paper copy on your way out the door. And for drop off, similarly, when you come to sign off, we'll give you a paper copy.
Okay. If someone owes taxes on their returns, do they pay at that time with you, or do they pay on their own? Or?
No. So we help prepare the return.
Okay.
But if we do deliver the bad news that you have to.
Yes.
We all. One of the tricky things is, we stress accuracy.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
So as much as we might want to help people out, like we have to file an accurate return, in the long run, that is in the best interest. So sometimes you're the bearer of bad news.
Right.
So if that is the case, you have 2 options. You can have a direct debit taken from your account, from your bank account. So sort of like if you get money back, you can have a direct deposit. You could also have a direct debit.
Gotcha.
One tricky thing about that is it's hard to predict exactly when they're going to take the money.
Yes.
So a lot of people still prefer to write a paper check and mail it to them.
That way they know it won't bounce.
Right, exactly, right.
Sure.
So if you're worried about your account balance, we also will give you, the address that you need, and the amount and instructions for mailing the payment.
Okay.
Yep.
What is this year's deadline, Rob, for filing your taxes?
The 18th of April. Yep.
Okay.
So because of the 3-day weekend, we have a little bit of extra time. Our last in-person session will be Saturday the 15th.
Is that right? Right up to the end.
Yeah, because that's Saturday the 15th is the last Saturday of the season.
Okay.
So that's our last day as a program. But the deadline, people do have a few more days.
Okay.
Yeah.
If someone needs to file an extension, if they, for whatever reason, can they do that with you as well?
It's possible. I think it's one of those things where, give us a call, explain your situation, why you think you need an extension, and then we can get one of our preparers to set up a time to talk about your situation and figure out if it makes sense to do so.
Okay. So your preparers, they're all up to date on the latest tax code changes. They know about
as
credits.
much as any human being can.
Yeah,
be.
well, right. I mean, yeah, it's a moving target.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have every volunteer, if you walk in, you'll see this big, huge document, which is Publication 4012. If you volunteer for the tax, you learn all these great arcane numbers of IRS publications. Publication 4012 is the reference guide to basically tax law for the VITA program. So we do train our volunteers on a lot of stuff. It's impossible to know everything,
right?
But we have a big book that we can reference.
You can reference to if you have a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
well, for instance, this year we didn't know if our state rebate from last year was going to be federally taxed until the last minute, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And even then, the answer was sort of like
maybe
it depends.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, so a lot of and this is one of those things. If people do have questions, we're always happy to. If you call if you give us a call, and we can do our best to sort of clarify things as best as we know. But there are so many situations where it does depend on your individual situation as well.
What are some of the major tax changes this year that folks should be aware of?
So there was the whole rebate situation, which for most taxpayers shouldn't be an issue. If you're taking the standard deduction, generally won't be an issue. Other changes, speaking of bad news to an extent.
Lay it on us, Rob.
Yeah, I know. We've been delivering a little more bad news than most years.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it that way. It's that during COVID, there were a lot of tax programs.
Sure.
There was like the additional child tax credit. There were a lot of like these sort of emergency tax incentives and things like that are sunsetting or have already sunset. Okay. So I guess the general advice is don't be too surprised especially if you qualified for some of those things during the last 2 or 3 years. Don't be too surprised if what you get back this year is not as optimistic as it was in previous years.
Okay.
Because things are sort of reverting to where it was in
Yeah.
2018 or 2019 in terms of what programs are available and that sort of thing.
Back to normal. Okay.
Yeah, right.
I think the great thing too about one of the benefits of using the VITA program at QCAP is if folks are eligible for some of your other programs, fuel assistance,
Yep.
Food assistance, housing assistance, you can directly connect them.
Yes.
And you know that based on their finances, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we don't share your
No.
financial information
Right, right.
with other departments. I'll
Right.
be really clear about that. But yes, we have like a no wrong door approach, which is that during the, when you're sitting down with us, we actually have another little QCAP intake sheet that
Yes.
we give to people where we have all of our programs listed. And you can indicate if you're interested.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really good, it's a good time, when you're doing taxes, it's a time you're thinking about your finances and you're thinking about your, just what's going on in terms of like the kitchen table conversations
Exactly,
and all
yeah.
of that. So it is, it's a good time to maybe reflect on like, are there programs out there that I might be interested in? And we're happy to refer people to other departments. And, I mentioned our financial coaching program.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually run by the same people who are doing the tax
It
program.
makes perfect sense. They're the experts.
Yeah, so for that, like, we don't need to refer you. We can just sit you down and talk to you about...
And do it at that time.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, but for other departments, whether it be, energy assistance, housing, childcare,
Right.
QCAP Head Start, and then my department is adult education, so we also have adult education courses and that sort of other things. Our food center. So yeah, we're happy to make referrals out to those.
Happy tax season, Rob.
Happy tax season.
Thanks for coming over.
All right, thank
Good to
you.
talk to you. You're welcome.
take
Just enough time to check the forecast for you for the rest of the day today. Enjoy it, because it's going downhill from here. Clouds increasing, temperatures in the upper 40s this afternoon, but tomorrow is a mess. Sunday not too bad, and more rain on Monday night, and probably some snow mixed in here on Tuesday with some wind as well. Thanks again to Rob Canada for joining us from QCAP.
Thank you.
Thanks to our crew. Thank you for watching. Monday here in the program, it's all about the Quincy Police Department's free basic boating safety classes that are offered this year. Hope you can join us for that. Meantime, check out our website. It's qatv.org. Our latest programs are there, news and information, video on demand, live streaming, and lots more. For all of us here at QATV, I'm Joe Catalano. Don't forget to spring ahead this weekend. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.